Good evening to you all. So we are about to start the session. So can you all hear me clearly? Hope you all can, right? Okay. So we've been discussing about the financial instrument for the last couple of weeks, and so far we have managed to discuss most of the content of financial instrument. So today, basically, we are going to looking at the accounting for derivative instruments as well as hedge accounting. So that is going to be the focus of the today's discussion. So before I move into the tutorial 3, there were uh, one question from the tutorial 2 and one question from the tutorial 1 is left. So I may be looking at them first and then moving on to the discussion of the rest of the aspects, right? Okay. So having said that, so let me go to the second tutorial, the last question that it was left, what we couldn't discuss. So let us look at that first, and then we may come to the next. Let's look at the Lewis PLC purchased 10,000 shares in another company during 2019 as a long-term investment for a cost of rupees 4.5 per share, incurring transaction cost of rupees 1,450. She made an irrevocable election immediately after the purchase to take all remeasurement gains and losses through other comprehensive income as allowed by CFRS 9. So it's about the financial asset at fair value through other comprehensive income. The market value of the shares at 31st December 2019 was rupees uh, 5, 5 rupees and 4 cents. It would cost rupees 1,500 in transaction cost to sell the shares at that date. So even you are given the transaction cost at the date of remeasurement or the reporting date. In this event, due to the liquidity problems, the Lewis PLC had to sell the shares in 2020 for 5 rupees and 45 cents per share, incurring transaction cost of rupees 1,510 on the deal. Requirement: discuss the accounting treatment of the financial asset in 2019 and 20. Okay, it's a comparatively easy job, but there's one little tricky point. But if you get them clearly, yes, you can manage it. So as usual, I would like to allow you some time to try this out, then followed by the discussion. So let me allow you, say, 10 minutes time to try this out. Once you're done with that, please indicate your answer. So then we can immediately move on to the discussion of that. Okay, can you start that? Yes, so if you have managed to get the answer, so you can indicate that in the chat. So depending on that, we can discuss. So something similar to this we used to discuss even in the last class. Hence, I think you may not find it that much of difficult. So the easiest way, so let us look at that. So no one is indicating, right? Okay. So the easiest way to get this across, you can just prepare a ledger account, isn't it? So for 2019 and 20, considering that, just prepare a ledger account. So it's basically a kind of investment. So yes. So initially, at what price you purchase them? It's 10,000 shares at rupees 4.5 per share. 10,000 shares at this 4.5. So that is the price that you had to pay. It's 45,000. And in that, it involves transaction cost, which is a financial asset that traveling through other comprehensive income. You need to capitalize the transaction cost as well. So you this. Then the reporting date comes. You need to remeasure that. And the remeasurement, how about the value per share? As at 31st December 2019, it stood at 5.04. So you can take the balance carried forward, the remeasurement per share 5.04, that is into 10,000 shares. And here the tricky aspect is that at that point you are given the transaction cost. But remember, we are not going to consider the transaction cost at the point of remeasurement. We only consider that at the point of purchase as well as at the point of disposal. So that's how we do. So it's 1,510. Sorry, 1,500. You should not consider that. So that is the learning outcome over there. So in fact, that is what I want you to understand clearly. So then you can see there's a remeasurement gain. So the gain must be taken to P&L, sorry, OCI, you know, it goes to the OCI. So you would have asked to provide the accounting treatment. So you can initially provide that the investment in shares. The double entries is pretty much required. It's about, oh, I would say, it's financial asset at fair value to the comprehensive income investment. It needs to get debit initially 45,000 plus 1,450 and then 46,450. So this is the cash which get credit. So this is about the initial recognition. Then it comes to the remeasurement. So in that you can see that there was a gain. So you can take that. The debit entry goes to the financial asset at fair value through other companies' income. It's 3,950. So the credit entry must go to the other comprehensive income. Other comprehensive income, and you know that is the reserve financial asset at fair value through other comprehensive income. So it will constitute a reserve as well. Then you can take that to the next reporting period, the balance brought forward, 50,400. Then what you are going to do after some time, due to the liquidity concerns, you are going to sell this. You're going to sell them in 2020 for 5.45 per share. Okay. So at the point of disposal, you would receive some money, but on the other hand, you have to incur some transaction cost. You can either take net proceeds over there here, or otherwise you can just take the things separately, in the sense the proceed from the disposal as well as the transaction cost. So however, you need to consider both. That is the ultimate disposal. So let me take the things separately. So therefore the cash, we are selling them 10,000 shares at rupees how much? 5.45. 5.45. So this is the cash that you get, the proceeds. At the same time, you incur the transaction cost, and it's a kind of outflow, 1,510. So you can consider that. So there is a difference, and that is 54,500, the greatest value. So the difference comes on the debit side, and that's going to be how much? 51,910. Okay, so this is a kind of a realized gain, hence it needs to go to the P&L. So you can take, that is the ultimate disposal. From the disposal, you can take the cash that would receive, considering both. You can debit 54,500 minus 1,510. Let me consider both together, 52,990. The net proceed and the carrying amount that you would take against that, it is the investment in shares. Yeah, it's financial asset at fair value through the comprehensive income. You're going to get rid from that, since it gets credit. It's going to be 50,400. So the difference is there, that is your gain. 2,590, and that should be the gain that you recognize in P&L. So this is what it has eventually happened over there. Right. So that's about the ultimate disposal. So you've been asked to account for this in 2019 and 20. So here we have the 2019. So this was the counting, gain on remeasurement, recognition of gain on remeasurement. This is what you do for 2019 and for 2020. So this is ultimate disposal. So okay, this is the disposal of investment. You can take that, right? Okay. So if you can manage this is it. And also better, since you've been asked to discuss, you can also mention about the gain what you had recognized earlier in the OCI that must be transferred to the retained earning. In other words, the balance in fair value through other comprehensive income reserve balance. Let me mention the amount as well. Balance of rupees 3,950 in the fair value through other comprehensive income reserve must be transferred should be transferred to retained earnings. Retained earnings in the statement of changes in equity, isn't it? In the statement of changes in equity. So if you can manage to do this, this is it. So most of the time, in case of the examination, you may be asked to provide the journal entries. So you can then do that, or even sometimes you may ask to provide none of these, as we have witnessed in the last class. It may be the extracts from the financial statements. So therefore, whether you are going to manage it through the ledger accounts or the journal entries may not matter the most, but the presentation. So if you are capable of presenting them in the statement of profit or loss and other countries' income, as well as the statement of financial position, that's it. Okay, so this was the question what I want to discuss from the second, what do you call that, second tutorial. Now let us look at the question that we have not discussed in the first tutorial. So in the very first tutorial, there was one last question I want to discuss. It's a derivative. So now we are going to start our discussion on derivatives. So let's discuss the derivatives, and then we'll move on to the hedge accounting. So that is about the today's discussion. Okay, let's look at the final question of the tutorial 1. So the very first tutorial that we discuss. The entity A enters into a call option on 1st of January 2020 to purchase 10,000 shares of another entity on 1st of July 2020. So you have entered into a kind of a call option to purchase the shares of another entity at a price of rupees 10 per share. The price of rupees 10 per share. කොටසක් රුපියල් 10 ගානේ මිලට ගන්න agreement එකට option agreement එකට ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. The cost of each option is rupees 1. So at the time you enter into the contract, the fair value of this option is rupees 1. A has a year end of 31st March. So this is about the entity A. So the entity A is having a kind of a year end of 31st March. So that information is pretty much required, because when it comes to the financial assets and financial liabilities, most of them we need to remeasure. Except equity, we need to remeasure the other assets and financial liabilities. So that's why they have given the reporting date. Hence, you need to remeasure them on 31st March. By 31st March 2020, the fair value of each option has increased to rupees 1 rupee and 30 cents. And by 1st of July 2020 to 1 rupee and 50 cents, with the share price on the same day being rupees 11. And the share price, the market price of the share at that date was rupees 11. Then obviously, A exercised the option on 1st of July, and the shares are classified as at fair value through profit or loss. So it's about your investment. It's fair value through profit or loss investment. Now it is required for us to provide the journal entries to account for call option and share purchase. We've been asked to provide the accounting for the shares and the call option. So here you are going to account for a derivative. So as you would have discussed in the lecture, so what do you mean by a derivative? So derivative has three characteristics, most important, isn't it? It has three characteristics. An instrument with three characteristics. The first one, so it will value change in response to the underlying asset, isn't it? The value of the instrument or derivative instrument change in response to underlying asset, underlying instrument, right? For example, if you take shares, the share option, it change in response to the change in the share price. අපි උදාහරණයක් විදිහට ගත්තොත් share price කියන එක share option කියන එකක්. ඒතකොට share option එක ඔයාලා දන්නවා value එක determine වෙන්නේ ඒ underlying share price එකත් එක්ක. ඒතකොට අපි different models use කරනවා මේ option pricing වලදී. You may be learning some of them. Maybe in finance, right? You may be learning them. So in that, you would find that when it comes to the determination of this option price, the significant determinant of this option price is going to be the underlying share price. Therefore, the share price could be the kind of a determinant of the value of this derivative instrument. Or sometimes it may be the kind of a exchange rate, especially if you take a derivative like forward rate agreement. In a forward rate agreement, the forward rate is dependent pretty much on the spot rate. The forward rate is dependent on the spot rate. Hence, it's going to be a determinant. The spot rate, the spot exchange rate is going to be a determinant of the value of the forward contract. So the value is derived from that. So not only that, even it depends on certain indexes. For example, if you take which is not available in country like Sri Lanka, but if you take the advanced economies, you may find the futures contract, right? So in that, you would find that this value is determined based on the underlying commodity indexes, so underlying the share price indexes. So likewise, so even when it comes to these industries, those who are dealing with the crude oil most prominently, and also the industries where they engage in the business of the wheat flour. So those are some of the industries where you may find that the futures contract would be used. These are the commodity markets, isn't it? The commodity markets you would find. So these indexes are being used. So not only that, even in case of the share transaction, in case of the share markets, you would find that there may be certain futures contract. So in that, the futures value is determined based on a particular index. So the underlying index. ඒතර අපි දන්නවා ඒතර අපේ වගේ රටවල් වල නැහැ ගොඩක් වෙලාවට දැන් බොරතෙල් කර්මාන්තය ආශ්‍රිතව එතකොට එහෙමත් නැත්නම් අපි ගත්තොත් ඔය wheat flour තිරිඟු පිටි ඒ වගේ commodities ආශ්‍රිතව අපි දන්නවා ගොඩක් වෙලාවට futures contract තියෙනවා. ඒතර ඒ වගේ වෙලාවක ඒ futures contract වල price එක තීරණය වෙන්නේ යම්කිසි underlying index එකක් base කරලා. ඒතර ඒක commodity markets වල විතරක් නෙමෙයි financial instrument markets වලටත් like shares, that is also the case. So therefore, the point what I'm trying to make here is that the value of this derivative instrument change in response to the underlying instrument, the value of the underlying instrument. So as the term suggests, we derive the value based on a price of a underlying instrument. That is one most important characteristic. The other one, as you would have discussed, when it comes to this transaction, the initial recognition, you may find that most of the time, at the point of initial recognition, there may be no value at all. So for most of the transaction, you would find that the transaction is not having a particular value, or if there is a value, it's going to be a very nominal value. The value of the contract, the value of the instrument is going to be a very nominal value. Like in the case of what do you call, here we are taking the share option. So the share option, you can see that the value is just 1 rupee per share. So therefore it's very nominal value. So very insignificant value compared to the underlying instrument value. So the share price is 10, but the option price is 1 rupee. So therefore it is very nominal value is there. Or even some cases, if you take the futures contract, if you take the forward contract, you would find that there would be no value at all at the initial recognition. And the third, so you know that this is settling a future date. It's settled in a future date. Settlement future date. So these are the three characteristics that is cited in the SLFRS 9. Right? So now we are going to looking at the accounting aspect. We know that these derivative instruments, when it comes to this derivative instrument, how we are going to account for, that is fair value through profit or loss. So it is pretty simple. It's fair value through profit or loss investment. So initially measured at the fair value transaction cost charged to the P&L, then remeasurement gains and losses must be taken to the P&L. Except in certain cases where the derivatives has been used as a hedge instrument. If the derivative has been employed as a hedge instrument, there can be instances where you may have to take these gains and losses to the OCI. But in general, derivative instrument is a fair value through profit or loss financial instrument. Right? It's about the accounting aspect. Right. So with that understanding, let's go and do the accounting. Yes, I think I can allow you, say 5 minutes time. Yeah. Just have a look at this and just start accounting for that, for the call option and the share price. Just give it a try. Yes, so have you made any attempts? Right, shall we have a look at that? So here we have the question. So again, the easiest way to get this across. So let me take a ledger account. So it's about the option. You are taking call option, and that initially. So you can see that here when you come to share option, there you have a very nominal value. But in some cases, you may find at the initial recognition, there it would be having no value at all, right? So it's cash. It's 1 rupee each into 10,000 shares. It's 10,000. This is about the initial recognition. So if you are interested in the journal entries, you can take the call option. Call option, you can credit it. Sorry, debit that. That is 10,000. And you can credit cash. So you pay the price and you got a call option. Then the reporting date comes, that is 31st March. At that time, what was the fair value of this instrument that was given to you as rupees 1 rupee and 30 cents. So then you can take the remeasurement, the balance carried forward. It's 1.3 into 10,000. So it's 13,000. You can see 3,000. It's a gain. So we agree that it's a derivative instrument is generally a fair value through profit or loss. Hence, take that gain to the P&L. So you can take, you debit the call option, it's 3,000 and it's cash. Take it is, sorry, not the cash, sorry, profit or loss being taken to the profit or loss, that is 3,000. Okay, now the remeasurement is there. Then what has happened? Then the maturity comes. At the maturity, you can see that they exercise the option on 1st of July, and the shares are classified as a fair value through profit or loss. So you are going to exercise this option on 1st of July. So at that date, the share price given, that is 11, and also you are given the value of the option. So now let's look at how we are going to account for this. How we are going to account for this. So on 1st of July, this become mature. The call option become mature. So at the moment you have 13,000. So let me just provide the journal entry here first. So at this point, at the maturity, you are going to receive the underlying asset, that is about the shares. In this particular transaction, this was for the shares. So at that time, you would receive the shares, and that is the investment in shares. Yeah, investment in shares. And how much that's going to be? It's going to be the fair value per share, that is 11, and you are taking 1,000 shares. So therefore, you are receiving shares with a value of 11,000. But as per the contract, how much you do have to pay? You have to pay simply, you agree to purchase these shares at rupees 10 each. So that's a contract. That's a contract. So therefore, all what you are paying is going to be 10 into 1,000 shares, 10,000. So this is about the transaction. Not only that, I told you that you are going to derecognize the call option because the call option matures on that date. Hence, you can also derecognize it over here. You can either take it here as well. That is about the call option. You can see that it's 13,000 credit altogether. So here 1,000 shares or 10,000 shares. No? Right, okay. Fine, here made a mistake. It has to be 10,000 shares. No, 100,000. Here also 10,000 shares. Sorry for that. It's 13,000. You can see that the call option now get derecognized 13,000. Here 100,000 altogether 113,000. Over here 110,000 over here. Then you can see another debit entry is required. It is nothing but the loss. It's a kind of a loss. So you should charge that loss to the P&L. So it gets debit over there. How much? 3,000. So this is about the accounting for the whole transaction. Accounting for the whole transaction. So මේ විදිහට තමයි accounting සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ. එතකොට අපි දැක්කා maturity එකේදී call option එක derecognize කරන්න ඕනේ 13,000. එතකොට අපි මුදලින් ගෙවන්නේ per share 10. So 100,000 is what we pay. Then we have the investment that received at the fair value 110,000. Then මේ දෙක අතර වෙනසක් තියෙනවා. It's a kind of a loss. Loss of 3,000 is there. Loss of 3,000 is there. But අපිට loss එකක් තියෙනවා 3,000ක්. Right? So that's how we do the accounting for that. But I can remember that one of the main doubt that the students had when I was discussing this question in the last year's batch, they used to ask me, What about this fair value? Don't we need to remeasure this call option at the time of maturity? Students අහපු ප්‍රශ්නයක් තමයි මෙතනදී අපිට අවශ්‍ය නැද්ද මේ call option එක mature වෙන point එකේ මේක remeasure කරන්න. ඒතර ඇත්තටම පුතාලා මෙතන ඒ වගේ remeasurement එකක් කරන එකේ තේරුමක් නැහැ. මොකද මේක දැන් mature වෙනවා. අපි හිතුවොත් remeasurement එකක් කරොත් ආපහු මොකක්ද වෙන්නේ? ෂා එකට remeasurement එකක් කරොත් 1.5යි 10 ගානේ ඒතර 15000ක් වෙනවා. තව අපි P&L එකට gain එකක් අඳුන ගන්නවා 2000. ඒතර අපිට derecognize කරන්න වෙන්නේ මේ 15000. ඒතර මෙතන 15000ක් derecognize කරනවා කියන්නේ මෙතන ආපහු loss එක 5000ක් වෙනවා. ඒතර මෙතන gain එකක් අඳුන ගන්නවා 2000ක්, මෙතන 5000ක් දානවා. net result එක ආපහු 3000යි. ඒතර ඒ නිසා remeasurement එක අවශ්‍යතාවය මේ අවස්ථාවේ ලොකුවට පැන නගින්නේ නැහැ. right? නිසා එනිසායි අපි remeasurement එක ගැන බොද වුණේ නැත්තේ. But even if you think or feel like doing that remeasurement, no harm, you can still do that, right? But the impact is same. Since the impact is same, I did not bother about the remeasurement. Then remeasurement එක ගැන බොද වුණේ නැති එකයි at the point of disposal. So here we have taken the option to purchase the shares. So therefore, at the point of maturity, so we have to simply derecognize the option. Hence, I did not bother about that remeasurement, right? It's 13,000. So therefore, here it remains 3,000 over there. So that is the entire story. You can see that what has effectively happened in the previous period, you have recognized a kind of a gain of 3,000, but in a subsequent period, you could see that you had to recognize a kind of a loss in this process. So therefore, no gain or loss in this particular transaction, but in some transaction there can be gains and losses. But if you consider about this, you can see in the previous period you had recognized 3,000 gain, but in the following period it was a kind of a loss. So hence you are simply better off. You are simply better off. And another important thing when it comes to these options, you know, it's a kind of a right. It's a right, not an obligation. So as far as the holder is concerned, it's not a obligation. අපි දන්නවා option එකක් කියනකොට දාලා එතන අපිට තියෙන්නේ right එකක්. එතන කිසිම obligation එකක් නැහැ. ඒතකොට මේ under favorable conditions තමයි අපි මේක exercise කරන්නේ. දැන් අපිට මේක market එකේ රුපියල් 11ට තිබ්බ නිසා තමයි අපි 10ට මේක ගත්තේ. දැන් බැරි වෙලා හරි මේක market එකේ 9ට ගන්න තිබ්බනම් අපි මේක කෙලින්ම අතහැරලා දානවා. instrument එක කෙලින්ම අතහැරලා දානවා. අපි එතකොට ඒ loss එකක් විදිහට වෙනවා අපේ call option එක derecognition එක. ඒත් අපි හිතමු මේක අපි අතහැරලා දැම්මා කියලා. එහෙනම් අපි loss එක විදිහට 13000ක් trade කරනවා. Right? That is how this option works. But here that was not the case. So we have derecognized that. That's about the disposal, right? Nothing is left over there. But you recognize the shares, it was at 110,000. So that is the investment in shares. ඒක තමයි investment in shares කියලා අපි asset එකක් හඳුනගන්න. So here the asset is recognized at 110,000 cash. Cash plus the call option, isn't it? Both contribute towards that. So as per the journal entry, no? As per the journal entry, you can see that both has contributed towards this share recognition, investment in shares, and also there was a kind of a loss over there. You have to charge that to the P&L. So for that also, if you wish, you can create account for the sake of completion. The year of disposal, you can say that is about loss one share transaction. Even the share option, you can see. There you have 3,000. Right. So likewise, you could have done the accounting over there. Right. So this is about the derivative that we wanted to discuss. That is about the options. Now let us move on to the today's discussion. It's about the continuation of a derivative as well as the hedge accounting. So I have uploaded your tutorial 3. So you can take that and let's look at the forward rate agreement, the first question. So let us read that. Assume that uh, McCoy, right? McCoy Limited imports fiberglass from the US. On 1st of February 2021, it plans to acquire the materials at a cost of US dollars 500,000. On 1st of May 2021. So today you are in 1st of April 2021 and you plan to acquire the material at a cost of at a cost of US dollars 500,000 on 1st of May 2021. In the sense, you plan to acquire these materials in 3 months time and settle them on 1st of August 2021. So for the settlement, you have some time. So this is acquired on credit basis. Hence, so this particular supplier has allowed you a credit period of 3 months time. So altogether, from 1st of February 2021, it's a 6-month time. Considering the exchange rate volatility in the market on 1st of February 2021, the company entered into a forward rate contract on US dollars with a foreign exchange broker to receive US dollars 500,000 on 1st of January 1st of August 2021. Sorry, yeah. Mistaking the date, 2021. You enter into a forward contract at a forward rate of US dollar 1 equal. It has to be the rate that you agree. Must be 200 over here, right? Another mistake. Sorry for that. Because here you can see the forward rate is mentioned as 200. It has to be 200. Okay, this year. The reporting period of the company falls on 31st March. Okay. So the reporting period is 31st March. Then the requirement account for this transaction on 1st of February 2021, 31st March 2021, and 1st of May, as well as 1st of August. Okay. So here, what we are going to see basically, how to account for this derivative. So that is our main motive. In the process, we may have to account for some monetary asset as well as the inventory. But here the main focus must be on how to account for a derivative. එතකොට අපි මේ question එකෙන් උත්සාහ කරන්නේ කොහොමද derivative එකකට forward contract එකකට account කරන්න කියන එක ඉගෙන ගන්න. එතකොට ඒකත් අයිති වෙනවා derivatives වලට. අපි දැන් shares option එකක් ගැන කතා කරා. ඒතර ඒ විදිහට මෙතන අපි බලමු කොහොමද derivative එකට අපි account කරන්නේ forward contract එකට කියලා. So I think it is better to discuss, since this is the first question, we all may have a look at this together. Hence, I would like to discuss this together. So මේ පළවෙනි question එක නිසා අපි කතා කරමු එකටම, right? So let me copy this and take it, right? So here our focus is about the derivative. It's about the forward rate agreement. Forward rate agreement. So when it comes to forward rate agreement, there it asks us to account for 1st of February 2021. What do you think? When it comes to this forward rate, what would be the accounting at the day you enter into the day you enter into the transaction, the day you enter into the forward rate agreement? What may be the initial accounting? So it's a kind of a derivative. So it has all the 3 characteristics. So here the fundamental question that you have to ask in the initial recognition, what is the value of contractual right? Contractual right. අහන්න ඕන පළවෙනි ප්‍රශ්නේ මොකක්ද? Contractual right එකේ value එක. So can't see the Excel. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay, now I think you can see that. Right. So in the forward rate agreement, now we are looking at the initial recognition. So on 1st of February 2020, right? We first have to ask 2 questions over there. The first thing is, what is the value of your contractual right? So on this date, what is the contract that you enter into? You enter into a contract to purchase 500,000 US dollars at rupees 200 each. And that is the value of your contract. So it is 500,000 US dollars and you're ready to purchase it at 200,000. You are eligible to receive them at that particular value. Right. Then on the other hand, you can see that as a matter of this contract, at the initial recognition, you find that there's a value to the contractual obligation. You know, if there's a particular transaction, there's a particular kind of a contract, there's a contractual right as well as contractual obligation. So අපි දන්නවා සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ගණදෙනුවක් ගත්තාම contract එකක් ගත්තාම contractual rights තියෙනවා, contractual obligation තියෙනවා. ඒතර contractual right එක අපි බැලුවා මොකක්ද? ඒක තමයි අපිට bank එකකින් හම්බෙන්න ඕනේ US dollars 500,000 රුපියල් 200 ගානේ. නේද? ඒක අපේ contractual right. Then what is the obligation? You have an obligation to pay for that. So අපිට ඒක ගෙවන්න ඕනේ. නිකන් හම්බෙන්නේ මේ 500,000 US dollars 200 ගානේ ගෙවන්නත් අපිට obligation එකක් තියෙනවා on that date. So now what? You have a contractual obligation 100 million, contractual right 100 million, contractual obligation 100 million. So therefore the net result is going to be 0. So then at the initial recognition, no, there's nothing, because simply the value of the contractual right is equal to the value of the contractual obligation. If that is the case, there's no value for the underlying contract. So that's why we call it, in most of the derivatives, we don't have a value at the initial recognition. So initial point එකේ අපිට වටිනාකමක් නැහැ. Right? So therefore 0. Then we may come to the reporting date, because you know when it comes to the derivatives, so we agree that derivatives is financial fair value through profit or loss, right? Derivative is a fair value through profit or loss. Hence, on 31st March 2021, you need to remeasure that. So here they have not mentioned that they have entered into a kind of a what do you call that? It's a kind of a hedging aspects. They have not discussed about the hedging. So therefore, we are not going to consider that. So මෙතන පුතාලා hedging එකක් සම්බන්ධයෙන් කතා කරලා නැහැ. එහෙම වුණොත් අපි දන්නවා ඒක මෙතන hedge relationship එකක් එන්න ඕනේ. ඒකට එතන procedure එකක් තියෙනවා, formal documentation එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒකට ඒ අනුව තමයි hedge accounting apply වෙන්නේ. ඒකට මෙතන අපිට පේනවා එතන hedge සම්බන්ධයෙන් සඳහනක් නැහැ. ඒ නිසා අපි normal accounting තමයි apply කරන්න ඕනේ. ඒකත් පුතාලා තීරණය කරන්න ඕනේ එක aspect එක. Whether you have to apply the hedge accounting or not. So since in this question it has not mentioned about the hedging, right? It has not mentioned about the hedging, you are going to apply the normal accounting. So what is the normal accounting? The derivative is accounted as fair value through profit or loss. So it's true that to mitigate the risk that you have taken, but you have not taken that through a formal procedure, so thereby the hedge accounting is not applicable. So you would have discussed that when it comes to hedge accounting, you need to have certain condition to be satisfied. Out of that, one of the main things was the proper documentation. So you need to designate a particular instrument as a hedge instrument, as well as the hedge item need to be very specifically identified. But here there's nothing as such. So hence we account under normal circumstances. Right. When it comes to remeasurement, what we need to do, again, you need to ask the two questions. What is the contractual right? What is the contractual obligation? That's it. So එතනත් අපේ අහන්න තියෙන්නේ අර ෆන්ඩමෙන්ටල් කාරණාවම තමයි. ඒකට අපි ඒක දාගත්තොත් ලේසි නේද මේ විදිහට. Let me take contractual right, value of contractual right, value of contractual obligation. Right. तर अब බලමු initial point එකේ අපි බැලුවා ඇත්තටම 1st of February 2021 that was 100,000. It's 100,000. Let me take the figures in thousands, so therefore no any valuation over there. Then when it comes to reporting date, 31st March 2021, what is the value of your contractual obligation? You know, under any circumstances, all what you are going to pay is 200 because you have locked into a price. That's 500,000 US dollars at rupees 200 each. It's always 100,000. But if you look at the forward rate at 31st March, it is rupees 190. Hence, what is the value of your contractual right? The value is now going to be 500 into 190. It's just 95,000. Now what? The obligation is greater than the right. It's a kind of a, is it something favorable or unfavorable to you? So if your right is less than the obligation, then it is a unfavorable scenario. It's something unfavorable. So you can see there's a loss of 5,000. Unfavorable. Good. Yeah. Thanks. It's unfavorable. So therefore it's a kind of a loss scenario, right? Contractual right. Now if we do the counting on 31st March for this, how it's going to be, you can see there you have a kind of a loss on forward contract. Forward contract, it's 5 million. So we are taking the figures in 1,000. It's 5 million loss. So debit, and it creates a forward rate liability, forward contract liability, right? It's a forward contract liability. It's a credit. Okay, so this is about the accounting for this derivative on 31st March 2021. You remeasure them at the reporting date. Okay. Then it comes to another important date, that is 1st of May 2021. So in fact, that is the day where you are going to purchase the what do you call that, inventory, right? Inventory. Yes, you are acquiring the material at a cost of $500,000 on this date, but it's on credit terms. So let's account for that. So that is on 1st of May 2021, where you acquire the inventory. So therefore you receive the inventory, the fiberglass inventory. So what is the value of that? It's $500,000. Let me take the figures in thousand. On that date, what is the spot rate? Right now, we are going to recognize the asset denominated in the foreign currency. So in that, on the spot, you have to use the spot rate. So it's 500 into spot rate at 1st of May 2021. How much it is? It's 195. Because here 95. ඒතර පුතාලා අපි දැන් ඔන්න ඉන්වෙන්ටරි එක අඳුන ගන්න යන්නේ. ඒතකොට ඉන්වෙන්ටරි එක අඳුන ගන්නකොට අපි ඒක ස්පොට් රේට් එක තමයි අපි ගන්න ඕනේ. දැන් අපි ඔන්න ස්පොට් රේට් එක ගත්තා, ඉන්වෙන්ටරි අඳුන ගත්තා. So this creates the liability, that is your trade payables, denominated in the foreign currency. It's $500,000. It's 97,500. So this is the recognition of asset. Of inventory. So what do you think? In this point, do we need to remeasure what you call our derivative? So do we need to remeasure this derivative on 1st of May 2021? So if it is a financial asset at fair value through profit or loss, what must be the point of measurement? You have to initially measure it, measurement at initial recognition. Then at each reporting date, you need to do the remeasurement. Other than that, you only need to measure them at the maturity, right? There's no point of doing a measurement on this date. So අපිට අවශ්‍යතාවයක් නැහැ පුතාලා මේ පහයි එක measure කරන්න. මොකද මෙතන අපිට මේ year end එකක් නෙමෙයි, reporting period එකක් නෙමෙයි, ඒ වගේම මේ අපි inventory අඳුන ගන්න දවසේ. ඒතකොට මේ දවසට අපිට measurement එක අවශ්‍යතාවයක් නැහැ. ඒතකොට ඒ වෙනුවට අපි measurement එක කරනවා at the maturity. ඒතකොට මතක තියාගන්න අපි derivative එකක් recognize කරන්න ඕන points තුනයි. Initially කරනවා, remeasurement එක at the reporting date, then the maturity. Those are the 3 days that is applicable if it is a kind of a accounting for a derivative, right? But if it is hedging, that's going to be slightly different. We are going to discuss it later. So if it is a hedging, you need to even measure on this date. So I'll explain them later. But if it is under normal circumstances, that is simply at the maturity. So therefore, this is all what we need to do on 1st of May. Then we come to the maturity. It's 1st of August 2021. How we are going to do that? So we may need to consider about the remeasurement of the monetary asset, so monetary liability, because that is in compliance with LKS 21. You know, if you have a monetary asset, you need to remeasure that. So inventory is a non-monetary item, hence that is not applicable for the inventory, but the monetary asset. At each reporting date, you need to do that, as well as at the maturity. You need to remeasure that. Okay, so let's look at the remeasurement. Take the trade payables. So I think it's easy for us to take a kind of a ledger account, may come handy. So therefore, let me simply take a ledger account. This is the trade payables. It's 97,500. Initially, you recognize it on the same year, on 1st of May. Then you have to remeasure that the balance carried forward. How much? It's going to be the spot rate 225. So it's 500,000 US dollars at 225. 112,500. Using the spot rate, you remeasure that. As a result of that, you can see that there's a loss. There's a loss on remeasurement, 15,000. So that is what the most important thing, the loss on remeasurement of trade payables. Trade payables on අපි remeasure කරා ඒකෙන් අපිට ආවේ මොකක්ද loss එකක්. ඒක අපි දන්නවා we take that to the P&L remeasurement loss. මේක P&L කියලා දාලා මේක පරණ කියලා ගන්න. It's P&L, it's loss on remeasurement of trade payable. Debit, how much? 15,000. Then the credit entry that goes to the trade payables. Right. Trade payables credit 15,000. Now what? You have 112,500. You can simply settle it. Then make වටිනාකම අපි දන්න 1,12,500යි. ඒතර මේ දවසට අපි මොකක්ද කරන්න ඕනේ? කියන 8යි එක මුදල් ගෙවලා මේක නිදහස් කරන්න. You can pay cash 112,500 and you can debit මේක settle කර. ඒත් එකම අපි බලන්න ඕනේ අපේ forward contract. So what about the forward contract? We have come up to 31st March 2021. Now we have come to the maturity 1st of August 2021. What about your contractual obligation? Is still you are ready to pay only for 500 US dollars. You are ready to pay 100,000. But what is the forward rate? It has to be equal to the spot rate, because you know the forward rate is your prediction about the spot rate. Hence, at the maturity, it's always the forward rate must be equal to the spot rate. ඉතල ඒකත් notice කරගන්න ඕන දෙයක්. අපි දන්න forward rate එක කියන්නේ ඒක තමයි අපි prediction එක. යම් කිසි දවසකට spot rate එක කීයක් වෙයිද කියලා. right? ඒතකොට අපි හිතුවා 2021 පෙබරවාරි 1 අගෝස්තු 1 වෙනිදාට spot rate එක 200ක් වෙයි කියලා. ඊට පස්සේ මාර්තු 31 වෙනකොට අපි හිතුවා ඒක 190ක් වෙයි කියලා. ඒතකොට different points වල අපි තියෙන different information එක අපි කරන estimate එකක්. හැබැයි අවසානයේ වෙනකොට අපි ඒක අනිවාර්යෙන්ම ඒතකොට forward rate එක spot rate එකට සමානම වෙන්න ඕනේ. මොකද මේක තමයි අපි prediction එක. Because it has now come to the maturity. Right? It's a kind of thing that I want to tell you. Right? So it's 225. That is 225 into 500. 112, 200. Then අපේ gain කීයක් තියෙනවද? Originally 12,500. තමයි අවසාන වශයෙන් අපේ gain එක වෙන්න ඕනේ. එතකොට මෙතන අපිට එන්න පුතාලා මතක තියාගන්න cumulative gain එකක්. එතකොට මෙතන අපි 5000ක් කලින් loss එකක් අඳුරගෙන තියෙනවා. එතකොට අවසාන වශයෙන් 12500ක gain එකක් වෙන්න නම් එතකොට අපි දැන් කීයක් අඳුර ගන්න ඕනද? gain එක හරි loss එක හරි විදිහට මම මෙතන ගත්තොත් gain or loss විදිහට make a cumulative gain or loss, cumulative gain or loss. මෙතන හැම වෙලාවකම අපිට එන්නේ cumulative gain or loss එකක්. මෙතන තියෙනවා 5000ක loss එකක්. මෙතන 12500යි යනවා. මේක 12500 වෙන්න නම් මෙතන අපේ 17500ක් වෙන්න ඕන. ඔය කලින් loss එකක් 5000ක් අඳුනගත්ත නිසා. right? එතකොට එහෙම නැත්නම් තවත් විදිහකට හිතුවොත් ලක්ෂයේ ඉඳලා 95000ට 5000යි loss එක මෙතන 95000 ඉඳලා 112500ට 17500. ඒතර මේ contractual right එකයි contractual obligation එකයි compare කිරීම තුල එන්නේ අපේ cumulative position එක. ඒක මතක තියාගන්න ඕනේ. එහෙම නැති වුණොත් මේක confuse වෙනවා. ඒතකොට සෑම වෙලාවකම මේ cumulative position එක තමයි එන්නේ. ඒතර මෙතන 1,12,500 සහ ලක්ෂය අතර වෙනස 12,500. It's the cumulative gain or loss. But what you have done from this point, you have come to 95,000. From this 95, now you need to go to 112,500. So ඒක තමයි gain එක හරි loss එක හරි බලන්න ඕනේ විදිහ. Right? Okay. So having taken that, now you can see that the gain or loss what you need to now account for 17,500. Right? Earlier you had recognized 5,000 loss. It's a kind of contractual liability, and the forward it's a loss. Now it's a kind of a gain. You can recognize that gain on forward contract. Credit 17,500. Forward contract asset this time. So it is 17,500. 17,500, right? Earlier it was a kind of a liability 5,000. Now it's a gain. So eventually, once you can set off this gains and loss in the sense of forward contract and forward liability, contract liability. So therefore, the net position is 12,500 asset, but you may be having. Okay. Now what's going to happen? Now what's going to happen? So since this contract matures, so you are going to receive this gain. So this time you have ultimate gain. How much? That was cash. So it would be easy that if I remove this forward asset and liability, I just say forward contract, then you can very easily understand. Earlier forward contract 5,000 credit, now it is 17,500 debit. So therefore, if you now imagine the forward contract, it is 12,500 balance is left. It's a kind of a gain. So you receive the money 12,500. The forward contract get de-recognized. Forward contract get de-recognized. How much credit? It's 12,500. දැන් ඉතින් පුතාලා අපි බැලුවොත් මේක අපිට පේනවා අපි මුදලින් ගෙව්වා කීයක්ද මේ liability එකට trade payables වලට 1,12,500ක් ගෙවුවා. හැබැයි අපි transaction එක lock කරලා තිබ්බේ ලක්ෂයකට. ඒතර කොහොමද එහෙම 1,12,500ක් ගෙවුවා නම් ඒක කොහොමද lock වෙන්නේ ලක්ෂයකට? ඒතර ඒක තමයි මෙතන තියෙන්නේ forward contract එකේ ප්‍රතිඵලයක් විදිහට අපිට හම්බෙනවා 12,500. ඒතකොට මුදලින් 1,12,500 කියලා 12,500 ආපහු හම්බුනාම effectively අපි ගෙවලා තියෙන්නේ මේ liability එකට ලක්ෂය. ඒතකොට ඒ විදිහට තමයි contract එක අපි lock කරන්නේ for that particular price. ඒ price එකට lock කරන්නේ අන්න ඒ විදිහට. तर පහසුව සඳහා මම forward contract account එකත් create කරොත් if you take the forward contract initially 5000ක් අඳුනගත්ත loss එකක් විදිහට loss on forward contract පස්සේ අඳුනගත්ත 17,500ක් gain එකක් විදිහට. In fact, this was at the previous period නේ. ඒත් ඒක ඕනනම් balance carried forward කරලා මම ගන්නවා. ඔබ 3.31 කට අඳුරගත්තේ. ඒකට අවුරුදු ඉවර වෙන්න ඇති. ඊට ඊළඟ අවුරුද්දට එන්න ඇති balance brought forward එකක් විදිහට 5000ක්. Then you have recognized this gain on forward contract 17500ක් හඳුනාගත්තා. ඒකට ඒක ප්‍රතිඵලයක් විදිහට දැන් අපිට පේනවා 12500 අවසාන වශයෙන් තියෙන්නේ. මේ පොයින්ට් එකේ අපි ඒක ඩීරෙකග්නයිස් කරනවා 12500 අයින් කරන්න. ඒ වෙනකොට ඔයාලට හම්බෙනවා cash. So nothing is left in the forward contract. It's fully settled. Eventually you ended up paying only 100,000. So මේක අපි වැරද්දක් නේ තාලා මෙතන ගත්තා නම් trade payable 112,500, cash 100,000, forward contract 12,500. then මේ records දෙකම ඕනනම් combine කරලා කෙනෙක්ට ලියන්න පුළුවන්. ඒකේ කිසිම වැරද්දක් නැහැ. හරියට අපි රෂයා option එක අඳුරගත්තේ. එතනත් ඕනනම් අපිට වෙන වෙනම entries ලියන්න තිබ්බා derecognition of අපි what do you call the share option. If I just to show that එතනත් මම එකතු කරලා ලිව්වේ. උදාහරණයට ඒක මෙතන මම කෙනෙක්ට මේකම ලියන්න තිබ්බා ඕනනම් expand කරලා ඉස්සරම call option එක derecognize කරනවා. කීයක්ද 13000ක්. ඒක loss එකක් විදියට ගන්නවා P&L එකට 13000ක්. ඊට පස්සේ investment in shares 1,10,000ක් ගන්නවා. හැබැයි අපි කියුවේ ලක්ෂයයි. ඒකට ලක්ෂය කියුවේ එහෙනම් gain එක තියෙනවා 10,000ක්. මේ entries දෙක combine කරලා තමයි මේ තනි entry එකක් ලියලා තියෙන්නේ. ඕකනේ උනේ derecognize කරා. මෙතන ඔන්න investment එක recognize කරා. ඒතර මෙතන මේ 13,000ක P&L එකට යනවා. මෙතන 10,000ක් යනවා. ඒතකොට සුද්ධ වශයෙන් 3,000 P&L එකට යවුවා නම් ඇති. එතන call option එක 13,000යි. ලක්ෂ කිව්ව එක 1,10,000 මෙතන. right? ඒතර ඒ විදිහට තමයි මම මෙතන suggest කරේ පුතාලට. කැමති නම් කෙනෙක්ට මේ entries දෙක එකතු කරලා ඒතකොට තව හොඳින් අපිට පේනවා reality එක trade payables 1,12,500ට අයින් වෙනකොට අපි ගෙවන්නේ මුදලින් ලක්ෂයයි forward contract 12,500. The same impact. And most importantly, your important learning outcome, you measure the forward contract initially, surprisingly, or as usual, not surprisingly, as usual. So it is having no value over there. Then at the reporting date, you measure it. Then again at the maturity. So these are the 3 points where you should measure the forward contract. Trade payables inventory, that is at the point of recognition where you are allowed to recognize the purchase. The inventory is recognized, trade payable was recognized. So again, when it comes to this asset, you know, the applicable standard that is going to be LKS 21, right? LKS 21. So it's about the foreign exchange, the effects of foreign exchange transaction, foreign exchange rates or something, right? As per that, you need to remeasure the monetary asset at the reporting date as well as the maturity. But here there is no reporting date because you recognize them in 1st of April. So 1st of May. So the reporting date may comes on 31st March 2022. But the asset, the liability may not last for such period because it's simply getting eliminated or simply getting derecognized on 1st of August. So therefore, it's a kind of a monetary asset, again initially, and then the reporting date, and then the maturity. But here, the reporting date is not there, but we took the maturity. And this is what the remeasurement. So that is what the remeasurement we did. And finally, we eliminated it. That's it. Okay, so that is about the accounting for the forward rate contract. I can remember that even in a second year, I used to taught you in a tutorial the forward rate, accounting for forward rate. And again, in the third year, it may not be you, no? It may be the last batch. Sorry, I did not involve with you in the second year, no? Right. So somehow this is how we account for the kind of forward rate. Is that clear to you? Anything that you would like to get clarified? Because you need to be perfect because so we are going to test this in case of the examination. So how to account for a derivative? කියන්න බලන්න පුතාලා පැහැදිලි නැත්නම් තිබ්බනම් ඒක කියන්න අපි ඒක ඩිස්කස් කරමු. Does that make sense? The whole thing? So pretty simple things once you get it systematically. It's all about the matter of contractual right and contractual obligation. Then look at the gain or loss and also the cumulative gain or loss. So that is the most important aspect. Is that clear to you? So would like to receive some form of feedback whether you are getting this or not. So if you are not getting, then specify the area what it is not. Then I can help you with that. So if you are getting that, then we can move on to the next one. So either way it benefits. So just let me know. මොනවත්ම තේරුනේ නැද්ද? ඒකත් සමහර ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙන්න හේතුවක් නේ. So either you are not getting them at all or otherwise you are getting them to the fullest. So the extremes. Okay, then let me take it positively. I think that you are getting them. Yeah, got it right. 5,000 loss brought forward. Okay, good, clear. Okay, so yes, Pata. So this 5,000 loss is simply it's a result of the remeasurement. You know that I told you that you need to remeasure your forward contract at the reporting date. The reporting date is 31st March. So when you look at that, what is the value of your contractual right? What is the value of your contractual obligation? It basically locked. It remains the same throughout the period, but the contractual right vary. If you look at the contractual right, you can see that here the forward rate at 31st March is 190. The forward rate is 190. If you take 190 into 500, this is the value of your contract now. So the contract value is 95,000. It's 100,000. The obligation, since the obligation is greater than the kind of a right, so it's a loss, 5,000. So if I just put it in an account, this is how it comes, the loss. And you know, since this is a reporting date, so basically you need to take the things balance carried forward, balance brought forward, assets and liabilities. So you take it balance carried forward to the next period. In the next period, the maturity comes. At the point of maturity, you remeasure it and you account for that. That's how we do that, right? Again, the fundamental question, what is the value of your obligation? What is the value of your right? As a matter of that, you took the gain or loss, then you account for that. It's again 17,500, 17,500. So the cumulative one is 12,500 altogether. So you receive that. Right? I hope you got it. Okay. Fine. Now let's move on to the next one. The same question I have taken, but this time I'm taking it as a designated hedge contract. Okay. The same information. Assume that the McCoy Limited import fiberglasses 1st of February, plan to acquire 500 on this date, settlement on this date. Considering the exchange rate volatility, company decided to hedge this risk. Okay, so this is the key term. Accordingly, on 1st of February 2021, company entered into a forward contract. So this time you are taking this forward contract, the derivative, as a designated hedge instrument. So you are entering into the hedge, right? So earlier there was nothing was mentioned as a hedge or something, but just to consider in the exchange rate volatility, you have entered into. So therefore, hedge accounting is something optional. So only if you are entering into the hedge, only if you are taking it as a kind of a through the formal documentation, if you assign a particular item as hedge item and the hedge instrument, then only you can apply the hedge accounting. Accordingly, on 1st of February 2021, company entered into a forward rate contract on US dollars with a foreign exchange broker to receive this much on 1st of 21. Sorry for that. And at a forward rate of 200. This hedge relationship is designated as a cash flow hedge. So here you are going to hedge against what? The adverse movement in the cash flows. Adverse movement of the associated cash flows. So ඒක තමයි අපි cash flow hedge එකක් කියලා කියන්නේ. So එතන අපි hedge කරන්න යන්නේ adverse movement of the cash flows. Cash flows වල තියෙන adverse movement වලට against තමයි අපි mitigation එකක් කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ. So that's why we are trying to hedge that particular adverse movement. The reporting period ends on 31st March. Then it asks us to identify the hedge item and hedge instrument. Yes, you can contribute in this. So contribute what is the hedge item and what is the hedge instrument. Risk here, the liquidity risk. Okay, you're asking about the risk. It's about it's associated with the market price, right? It's associated with the exchange rate. Hence, it's going to be the market risk, right? It's a kind of a price related risk, not the liquidity. I think market risk comprises the liquidity and also the price. Here the price. It's about the price risk. Here we are having. Good. Right. What is the hedge item and what is the hedge instrument in this particular transaction? So the same thing, accounting may be slightly different because now you have to apply the hedge accounting, right? So you need to know what is the accounting for the cash flow hedge. In fact, you have discussed one question in your lecture as well, as you may not find it difficult, but just to sort of discussing one more in the tutorial as well. What is the hedge item in this? You know, hedge item is can be a recognized asset, recognized liability, highly probable transaction, or unrecognized firm commitment. Likewise, that is what the definition says. The hedge item කියන එක වෙන්න පුළුවන් කියලා අපි ඉගෙන ගත්තා. ඒක recognized asset එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්, recognized liability එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. It can be a kind of a highly probable transaction එකක්. නැත්නම් unrecognized firm commitment එකක්. ඒත් ඔය වගේ වෙන්න පුළුවන් කියන කාරණා. So but somehow in the lay language, if you take that, it is simply the one that create the risk. It's a kind of a asset or liability or the instrument that will create a kind of a risk to you. So here, what is that will expose you to a kind of adverse movement in the cash flows. So what is that? You know, as a matter of this transaction, it gives rise to trade payables, isn't it? Trade payables. මේ ගනුදෙනු ප්‍රතිඵලයක් විදිහට දානවා trade payables ඇති වෙනවා. The trade payables වලට අදාළව තමයි අපි payment එකක් කරන්න තියෙන්නේ. Right? ඒතර මෙතන අපි worry වෙන්නේ නැහැ ඉන්වෙන්ටරි වල fair value එකක් සම්බන්ධයි. ඒතර මෙතන අපි worry වෙන්නේ cash flow එකක් සම්බන්ධයි. ඒතර cash flow එක මොකක්ද මෙතන තියෙන අපි ගෙවන්න ඕනේ ඉන්වෙන්ටරි වලට. ඒකට ඒ කියන්නේ trade payables, right? නම් hedged item එක වෙන්නේ the kind of a asset or liability which exposes us to a kind of a risk, right? Adversity. So which exposes us to a kind of a risk. So that is the hedged item. Then how you are going to mitigate that? That is your hedged instrument, hedging instrument, right? Hedge instrument. ඒ risk එක mitigate කරන්නේ okay. එතකොට අපි කියන්න පුළුවන් so it's cash let's say that settlement of trade payables කියලා අපි කියන්නේ ඒක වඩා හොඳයි because it's about the kind of settlement the cash flow associated with that then it is implied නේ මොකද මෙතන අපි highlight කරන්න ඕනේ associated cash flow කියන එක නම් settlement of trade payables would be more suitable. Then the hedge instrument, so with what you are going to mitigate this particular risk. You're trying to mitigate this risk using a forward contract. So it is the hedge instrument. So it is basically the strategy that you use to mitigate the risk. So what create risk? Hedged item, but mitigate risk? Hedge instrument. That's it. Now it's about accounting for the hedge item and hedge instrument. Hedge instrument, you can see that you enter into this particular forward rate contract on 1st of February. As usual, you know that when it comes to the accounting for 1st of February, as we learned earlier, contractual rights equal contractual obligation. So if I just try to put it, the same thing, I can simply copy and take it. Value of the contractual right, value of the contractual obligation. So on this particular date, if you take it, value, it's 500 into 200, obligation 500 into figure sign 1000. So no gain at all, no gain at all. So therefore initially you need to do no accounting as usual. So when you come to the derivative, initially you do not find it, but at the reporting date you need to do the remeasurement as usual. Again, the fundamental thing, what is the value of your obligation? You simply logged into that. But what is the value of the contractual right? It's about the forward rate at the reporting date. It's 190 into 95,000. So the gain or loss, it's a kind of a loss. As usual, you can place the entry. It's about kind of a loss on forward contract. Then you have, that is forward contract. It's credit. 5,000, 5,000. You can see that no difference at all, right? But here your narration is going to be, this is about the remeasurement of hedge instrument. And also one thing that I have really missed, there's a difference, sorry for that. You know, if it is a kind of cash flow hedge, until you recognize the hedged item, the gains and loss must be taken not to the P&L, but to the OCI. Sorry for that. Sorry පුතාලේ එතන වැරද්දක්. ඒක අමතක වුණා. අපි යම්කිසි derivative එකක් ඒක අපි hedge instrument එක විදිහට අඳුන ගන්නවා නම් cash flow hedge එක අපි අඳුන ගන්න ඕනේ gain එක හරි loss එක හරි. Until you recognize the hedged item එක recognize කරන මොහොත වෙනකම් ඒ තියෙන gain සහ losses අපි අඳුනගන්නේ OCI. So this is one of the remarkable differences. Under normal accounting, you saw that it was recognized in P&L, but here you would see a remarkable difference. It has to be recognized in OCI. Let me highlight that. Earlier I have not mentioned that. I should have mentioned it. It's P&L, no? So this was going to the P&L. Because, under normal circumstances, the derivative is fair value through profit or loss. But if it is in case of a cash flow hedge, right, the gains and losses until you recognize the hedged item එක අඳුන ගන්න මොහොත දක්වා තියෙන gains and losses you take to the OCI. In the sense, it goes to the reserve as well, that is the cash flow reserve. OCI, or even you can say it must be taken to the cash flow hedge reserve. Right. So that is about the counting at or the remeasurement. You have taken them there. Then we come to the day you are going to recognize the hedged item. අන්න අපි එනවා hedged item එක recognize කරන දවසට. එතකොට අපි recognize කරමු. It's about the inventory, no problem. Yeah, it's inventory. Debit. How much? The spot rate was at 1st of May, it was 195. It's 195 into 500. Take a 97,500. Then you take the trade payable, the corresponding liability. The spot rate, you recognize it's about 500 into 195. 195. Make it up here, recognition of hedged item. Hedge item. One of the hedge item එක recognize කරා. එතකොට standard එකේ මොකද්ද කියලා තිබ්බේ? When it comes to the cash flow hedge, you need to recognize the gains and losses of the hedge instrument in the other comprehensive income till you recognize the hedged item. එතකොට මෙන්න hedge item එක recognize කරන point එක. එහෙමනම් මෙතනදිත් අපිට සිද්ධ වෙනවා remeasurement එකක් කරන්න. මොකක්ද? forward contract එක. මොකද 2021 2.1 ඉඳලා 2021 5 4.30 දක්වා තියෙන losses ටික අපි අඳුන ගන්න ඕනේ OCI එකේ කියන නිසා. ඒකට අපි ඒක අඳුනගමු. ඒ නිසා අපිට remeasurement එකක් කරන්න වෙනවා මේ hedge item එක අඳුන ගන්න දවසේ. ඒකට ඔන්න තව difference එකක්. මොකද කලින් question එකේ අපි දක්වා remeasurement එකක් කරේ නෑ ඒ දවසට. remeasurement එකක් කරේ at the point of settlement සහ reporting date එකේ. නමුත් මෙතන සිද්ධ වෙනවා මොකද requirement is there, right? Okay, we'll do that. So what about the date? This is on 1st of 2021. It's on 31st March 2021, and now you are in this date. You need to do that. Still the obligation would remain the same, but the kind of a contractual right. The forward rate at that date, it was 205 into 500. It's 102,500, 100,000. So what about the cumulative gain? If you look at, it's going to be a kind of a gain 2,500. Here we have cumulative gain earlier 5,000. So once you compare the contractual right and obligation, you come up with the cumulative gain 2,500. Then how can you make this 5,000 loss to a cumulative gain of 2,500, it's simply the recognition of this difference. It's 7,500. If you recognize a gain of 7,500, then you ended up with the cumulative gain. එතනදී අපි 7,500 ගොන්න gain එකක් recognize කරන්න ඕනේ. So it's about the gain. It's about the OCI, because you know that it has to be taken to the OCI එකට අපි ගන්න එක. It's about the gain on forward contract. Or even you can say the cash flow hedge reserve. Cash flow hedge reserve credit. It's 7,500. It's about the forward contract. Debit, how much? 7,500. 7,500. Right. You have recognized that. Now what? Then it says that now you have recognized all the gains and losses of the hedge instrument in the OCI till you recognize the hedged item. So once you recognize the hedge item, the other thing what you need to do is that you need to take this the gains or loss that is accumulated in the cash flow hedge reserve against the underlying asset. ඊට පස්සේ අපිට කියනවා අපි දැන් hedge item එක recognize කරා. ඒතකොට ඒ recognize කිරීමේදී ඇති වුණු asset එකේ හෝ liability එකට against අපිට ගන්න කියනවා මේ cash flow hedge reserve එකේ තියෙන balance එක. ඒතර අපිට පේනවා මේ cash flow hedge එකේ දැන්ට තියෙනවා reserve එකක් කීයක්ද 5000 loss එකක් වුණා. දැන් 7500ක gain එකක් වුණා. ඒ අනුව balance එක 2500යි, and that must be taken against the inventory. So that is another important entry that you need to pass on this very date. ඒතර මේ දවසට අපි pass කරන්න ඕනේ තව එක් වැදගත් entry එකක් තමයි ඒක, right? So you debit the cash flow hedge reserve debit that, it's 2,500, and you credit that against the inventory. So the inventory ke carrying amount එකට against අපි ඔන්න එක ගත්තා, right? So මේකත් එක් remarkable difference එකක්. එතකොට normal accounting වල සිද්ධ වෙච්ච නැත් දෙයක්. එතකොට මුලින්ම කිව්වා recognize කරන්න කියලා until you recognize a hedge item, the gains and losses in OCI, and then take this cumulative gain or loss against the what do you call that, the asset that you recognize. So basically the hedge item, the inventory. Then what you can do thereafter, as normally, you can do the remeasurement. So relating to the monetary item, you can do the remeasurement. So when you come to this monetary item, so it's about the trade payables, you can remeasure them at, so again, the easiest way, let me take an account for that. Then let's can easily recognize the remeasurement gains or loss, trade payable. Initially, we have recognized them at 97,500 over there. Against the inventory. And now we are going to remeasure it on 1st of August. Balance carried forward. How much is that? There you have 225, the spot rate, 225 into 500, 112, 500. Then you can see, as usual, even we have witnessed that earlier, the remeasurement loss was 15,000. So, when it comes to this hedge item, the trade payables, you need to take that to the P&L, right? You're going to take that to the P&L. So, as usual, no problem. As per the LKS 21, you're going to take it to the P&L. And then loss on remeasurement. Amount of trade payables. එතන කිසිම වෙනසක් නෑ. අපි කලින් ගත්ත විදිහටම දාලා එතකොට ඒක loss එක ගන්නවා P&L එකට. 15,000. So it is 15,000 credit to the trade payables. එතකොට පේනවා අපිට trade payables වල අවසාන වශයෙන් 1,12,500ක් තියෙනවා. එතකොට 1,12,500 අපි settle කරමු. Cash, you can pay 112,500, debit trade payables. Debit 112,500. ඒත් එකම maturity එකේදී අපි දන්නවා forward contract එක අපි කොහොමද remeasure කරන්න ඕනේ. So අපි forward contract එකට යමු. 1st of 2021. It always remains the same, the liability, and here the contractual obligation is 225. So as usual, it's 500 into 225. 112,500. Accumulated gain or loss is going to be 12,500. Then how can you make this 2,500 to 12,500? Just put 10,000 gain. So this is the remeasurement gain, 10,000, and you need to take that to the forward contract. So forward contract. Debit 10,000 and credit that to this time. Once you recognize the hedge item, from that point onward, the gains and losses that you would have must be taken to the place where you would take the remeasurement gains and losses of the hedged instrument. So hedge item. Cash flow hedge එක අපිට කියනවා hedge item එක recognize කරන point එක දක්වා hedge instrument එකේ තියෙන gains and losses other comprehensive income recognize කරන්න කියලා. ඊට පස්සේ අපිට කියනවා hedge item එක recognize කරන point එකේදී අඳුන ගන්න කියනවා මේ කියන cash flow hedge reserve එකේ තිබුණු දේවල් against එතන අපිට choice එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒතකොට ඒක අපිට recognize කරන්න පුළුවන් ඕනනම් hedge item එක ඒ කියන්නේ trade payables වලට against එහෙම නැත්නම් අපිට පුළුවන් ඒකේ corresponding asset එකට එරෙහිව අඳුන ගන්න. ඒතකොට මේ point එක මම highlight උනේ නැහැ මගේ අතින්. Sorry for that. I was just thinking about that. ඒතකොට එතනදී පුතාලා කියනවා අපිට ඒ OCI අපි cash flow hedge reserve එකේ අඳුනගෙන තිබුණු දේ අපිට අඳුන ගන්න පුළුවන් either against inventory or trade payable. But most of the time what we would do, we may be taking the non-monetary item because there is no remeasurement, so therefore it's trouble free. So therefore we may be recognizing them against the inventory. So that's why our preferred choice was inventory. So අපි දන්නවා inventory කියන්නේ non-monetary asset එකක්. ඒකට මේකේ remeasurement එකක් මොකුත් නැහැ. ඒකට ඒකට එරෙහිව අඳුනගත්ත එක පහසු නිසා. එහෙම නැත්නම් කෙනෙක් මේක trade payables වලට against අඳුනගත්තත් ඒකේ වැරද්දක් නෑ. It's a hedge item, even if you taking that against the hedged item, no problem at all, right? So but here I taken that against the inventory. ඊට පස්සේ අපි දන්නවා remeasurement එක තියෙනවා hedged item එකේ. It's a kind of a financial, sorry, it's a monetary liability. So in the monetary liability, you remeasure that. Remeasurement gains and losses goes to the P&L. එහෙමනම් hedge instrument එකේ තියෙන losses gains hedge item එක recognize කරාට පස්සේ යන්න ඕනේ කොහෙටද? අපි කියනවා ඒකත් අරගෙන යන්න ඕනේ P&L එකට කියන. එහෙනම් so you take that forward contract debit 10,000. So credit that to the P&L. That is your, what do you call that, gain on forward contract. Forward contract again. तर මෙතන ඇත්තටම සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ matching එකක්. එතකොට P&L එකට යන නිසා ඒක P&L එකටම දානවා. දැන් කලින් එකත් අපි දැක්කා P&L එකට තමා ගෙනිච්චේ monetary asset එකේ remeasurement එක, gain එක හරි loss එක හරි. එතකොට එතන තිබ්බ loss එකක්. එතකොට මේ gain එක ඒක set off වෙලා යන්න අවශ්‍ය නිසා අපි ඒකත් දානවා ඇත්තටම P&L එකට. එතකොට ඒක ඒ තැන් දෙකේ තමයි අපි ගන්න. එකම තැන තමයි අපි ඒක consider කරන්නේ. So you consider that it's 10,000. Now it's time to settle this forward contract. If you look at the forward contract, so the cumulative gain is 12,500. $10,500 එකේ ඉතුරු වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒකෙත් ඕනනම් තව පැහැදිලි වෙන්න අපිට පුළුවන් account එක ගන්න. You can take the account. So initially take this forward contract with it was a kind of a loss initially. 5,000 it was a loss. It was a credit entry. It was against the cash flow hedge. Cash flow hedge reserve. So there it came the 5,000 ඉපන්දාවේ cash flow hedge එකකින් ඊට පස්සේ year එක ඉවර වුණා, balance carried forward වුණා. It's 5,000. We start the next period, balance brought forward that 5,000. හැබැයි අපි පහයි එකත් ආපහු measure කිරීමක් කරා. මොකද ඒ දවස්වල අපි hedge item එක recognize කරා. ඒතර hedge item එක recognize කරන point එකේ remeasurement එකෙන් අපිට ආවා 7,500. It was a kind of a gain. Forward contract had to be debited 7,500. ඒතර ඒක අපිට ආවේ ඒකත් cash flow hedge reserve එකෙම තමයි. Cash flow hedge reserve. Right. Now you have taken that 2,500 is there, the ultimate position, no problem. Only the cash flow hedge reserve is what we have transferred against the inventory. Inventory එකට එරෙහිව අපි transfer කරේ cash flow hedge එකේ අවසාන වශයෙන් ඉතුරු වෙලා තිබ්බ reserve amount එක. ඒකට ඒකෙන් කිසිම impact එකක් නැහැ. අපි hedge asset එකට, hedge contract එකට, forward contract එකට ඊට පස්සේ අපි ආපහු remeasurement එකක් කරා. එතනින් අපිට ආවා 10,000ක්. It was 10,000 again. 17,000. Yeah, 10,000. It came from P&L this time. It came from P&L. ඒ පාර අපි 10,000 දැන් P&L එකට. 17,500 5000ක් තිබ්බා. කියන්නේ 12,500යි. එහෙනම් maturity එකේදී අපිට සල්ලි හම්බෙන්නේ 12,500 cash. So you receive cash, debit 12,500, 12,500, 12,500 against the forward contract. Settlement එක entry එක ගත්තොත් ඒකේ වෙනසක් නැහැ. You can see that. So the settlement entry is this. That is no different. It is not different from the settlement entry what we had earlier. You can see that the trade payable cash, yeah, same thing. We have recognized the same amount, no difference there. But the difference was witnessed in certain circumstances, especially until you recognize the hedge item, you had to recognize gains and losses in OCI, which in turn goes to the cash flow reserve, and also you had to do a remeasurement, and that is the day on which you recognize the hedge item. You had to do that again. And on the same day, you had to do another important thing. What is that? What it was accumulated there, what is what it was accumulated there in the cash flow hedge reserve, you have to transfer that against the kind of a hedged item. But there you have a choice. You can either take them against the asset or the liability. No problem. So whatever the treatment that you do, that is perfect. But to make the thing simple, to keep the thing simple, I have taken that against inventory, because when it comes to the inventory, there is no remeasurement. So therefore, it is trouble free. Even if you take it against the trade payable, no problem. That is perfectly correct. The standard allows both. So here we have taken that against this, the cash flow hedge reserve. So whatever the movement in the cash flow hedge should also impact to the OCI as well. So here you need to take the OCI as well. The cash flow hedge movement එකක් කියන OCI through වෙන්න ඕනේ. The OCI also gets debit and inventory gets credit. Then you come to the remeasurement of the monetary as liability, and you know the remeasurement of the monetary liabilities asset goes to the P&L. In line with that, you have taken the forward contract where the gains and losses has now been taken to the P&L. For gains and losses, then අපි යන්න P&L එකට ගන්න. කලින් OCI ගත්තා hedge item එක අඳුර ගන්න කලින්. නමුත් hedge item එක අඳුරගත්තට පස්සේ ඉඳලා ඒවත් අපි P&L තමයි යවන්නේ. ඒ ටික තමයි මෙතන තිබුණු difference එක. It's a kind of a the maximum possible that you can be tested. So therefore it's a kind of a comprehensive one, and see whether you get that. බලන්න පුතාට ඒක පැහැදිලිද කියන කාරණා. So this is something exactly similar to a question that you have discussed in the lecture. So therefore, I believe that this may help in understanding. Yes. I can show you the lecture slides as well. So it's a little complicated, but if you still get with the kind of a logical way, I think it helps. So we discuss about the cash flow hedge. Yeah, this is the point what I want to show, that the theoretical point. This is it. අපි cash flow hedge එකක් සම්බන්ධ account කරනකොට මෙන්න මේ කියන points ටික තමයි දැන් අපි ඔය සිද්ධ කරේ. Recognition of gains and losses on the hedge relationship. I'm referring to the lecture slides 28, 29, 30. So 28, 29, 30 වල තිබ්බ දේවල් ටික අපි බලන්නේ. ඒතර අපි කියව cash flow hedge එක නම් then අපි exposure එක තමයි variability in the cash flow, right? That is attributable to a particular risk associated with the recognized asset or liability. Let's කොහොමද accounting කිව්වේ? Hedge instrument measured at fair value and gains or losses is initially transferred to the equity cash flow hedge reserve, therefore included in the OCI. So ඒක තමයි පුතාලා අපි මුලින්ම අර සිද්ධ කරේ. අපි ගත්ත gain එක හරි loss එක හරි OCI මම කිව්වා initially recognize කරන්න කියලා. එතකොට ඒක අපි සිද්ධ කරේ අර විදියට. එතකොට ඒක අපි treatment එක ගියා කවද වෙනකන්ද මේ instrument එක hedge item එක recognize කරන point එක වෙනකන්. එතකොට මේ කියලා තියෙනවා the treatment for the amount recognized in the cash flow hedge reserve depend on whether it is highly probable. Once the hedge item is recognized, the balance in the cash flow hedge reserve is included in the cost of the asset or liability. ඒතර මම කිව්වා අපි ඒක කැමැති එකට ගන්න පුළුවන්. hedge item එකට ගන්නත් පුළුවන්. ඒක inventory වලට ගන්නත් පුළුවන් කිසිම ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ කියලා. ඒතර ඒ අනුව තමයි මම මෙතන hedge ඒ අපි hedge item එක recognize කරන දවස් දක්වා එකතු වෙච්ච දේවල් cash flow hedge වල recognize කරේ inventory එකට against. ඒතකොට ඒක පුතාලා trade payables against ගත්තත් ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ කියන එක තමයි මෙතන කියන්නේ. So you should take it against the cost of the asset or liability. No problem at all. Thereafter what it says, once the hedge item is recognized in the financial statement, accounting treatment for the cash flow hedge and fair value hedge is same. hedge item එක අඳුනගත්තට පස්සේ cash flow hedge එකේ fair value hedge එකේ treatment එක සමානයි කියන්නේ මොකද අපි දන්නවා එතකොට P&L එකට නම් යන්නේ remeasurement gains and loss of the hedged item එතකොට අපේ hedge instrument එකේ gains and losses උත් අපි යවන්නේ P&L එකට. ඒතර මේකට එක exception එකක් තියෙනවා පුතාලා අපේ hedged item එක OCI related item එකක් නම් උදාහරණයක් financial asset at fair value through OCI නම් අපි දන්නවා hedge item එකේ gains and losses යන්නේත් OCI. එතකොට මෙතනදිත් gains and losses continue to go to the OCI. Gains and losses OCI වලට තමයි යන්නේ. Right? It is kind of very exceptional circumstances, but most of the time what you would find that the gains and losses of the hedge item under cash flow hedge would go to the P&L. Consequently, we would take that to the P&L as well. So therefore, the theory what you must refer is the slide 28, 29, and 30, and that's what we have accounted for here. Right. So if you have any question, yes, it's time for you to come up with that. Without ප්‍රශ්න තියෙනවා අහන්න අපි ඒවා clarify කරනවා. Yes, just give me a so just let me know whether you are getting this or not. So if not, I can explain. So it seems that that's all what we can discuss for the day. In the next class, I may be discussing about the fair value hedge, the other aspect, as well as the impairment questions I am planning to discuss. So here I have 3 more questions. Yeah. So we may be looking at these questions in the next class as well. Yeah. From the things what we have discussed today, just check whether you are fine with that. Okay, then no any other comments. Seems that you may be getting them to the fullest, or sometimes you may be not getting them at all. But let's think positively. I think you are getting there. So let me share this video recording as well as the workings, what I used to do. Then you can further refer that, try that out, come up with the questions if you have any in the next class. So then that's it for the day. Then see you in the next class. Thank you.